where shall we start? Right. Let's do your test first. So if I go to the syllabus, your test is going to be at 9 o'clock. You are going to get a different Zoom link than your usual class Zoom link. And when you turn up for this class at 9 or 10 to 9, whenever you decide to turn up, there are going to be some students from my other class. So you're going to say, I don't recognize her or him, and that's okay. I'm just using one Zoom lesson for the entire thing. It's just easier than going out and in at different times because they're going to be a little bit overlapped. So if you turn up 10 minutes early, that's fine. But don't turn up late because that will eat into your time. If you do turn up, it will be earlier. So let's talk about what is in the test. Well, here it is. Sequences, guaranteed question on sequences. And then you will get essentially questions on every single one of these situations. So you'll get a geometric series test, a divergence test, all those tests. You will even get a power series question, something similar to the 5 questions that you've got. And the way it's going to work is you will turn up and you will go to Canvas and you will be here in your Zoom lesson, just like Tessa is, and I will be watching you. So you need to get your video going, guys. And if you've not been getting your video, guys, because you haven't got one, you're going to have to get a hold of one. So the easiest way to do that is to go using your cell phone. I think in today's world, everybody's got one. If you don't have your cell phone and you don't have a camera that's working, you still have enough time, I think, to contact the college and get a loaner. So you've got one. I do believe, somebody quote me on this, can you get a cheap and cheerful camera for about $40, $50? What's the going rate for a camera? Anybody know? Probably not more than that, right? You don't need to be high def or anything, just I need to see you. The reason I need to see you is for security. I want to make sure that your Molly doesn't have her twin sister behind her, pointing over her shoulder, telling her what to do. You didn't know that Molly had a twin sister, did you, guys? In fact, this isn't Molly today. This is her twin sister sitting in for her because Molly's decided to have a sleep in. Is that what happened, Molly?
Definitely.
Okay. So that is it, right? To be fair, right? It's not fair that you are doing it honestly and someone else gets an advantage by cheating. So we all are in the same boat. So basically, you're one question on series and then a whole bunch of questions on solving series questions, right? So one on sequence and the rest on series. And when you do your questions, you are going to then, well, where will they appear? Let's talk about that. Do you see this guy here that says test 1 will be appearing here? If you click on it, there's nothing. But on Tuesday, it will be there. It will be a PDF. Right, so you should be able to, you don't need to print it or do anything. You just need to read the question and write the answer. Read the question, write the answer, right? And you will then eventually finish the test. Well, that's kind of stage 1 over. When you do the test, will you please, 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 I've said it 3 times, show me the working. Show me the working. Show me the working. To give you an example, I know when you do the homework, we cut out some steps because you don't want to do the same thing 12 times. You know how to do it, so you maybe do it a couple of times and then just go on to it. If you were doing the alternating series test, don't just prove to me that the limit is 0. What do you have to prove to me before you do that last step? For an alternating series, what do you need to prove?
It's greater than 0 and decreasing.
Right. Now, the greater than 0, the positive one, is very rarely ever a physical proof. Don't you just write it down and say it's greater than 0. In which case you're telling me you know you needed to check it was greater than 0. right? The decreasing one, you should use derivatives on it, right? So if it was 1 over n squared, won't you differentiate it and prove the derivative is negative?
Couldn't you also use like a ratio thing, like plugging in n plus 1?
And proving that the ratio was less than 1?
Yeah.
That would work. If it made logical math sense to me, I would allow that.
Okay.
Yeah. Integral test is the killer. You know you have to prove it's decreasing as well, don't you? Especially positive and decreasing. But you don't need to do it for things like the ratio test. Don't you just go straight into the test? You know, so some have an A, B, and then you do the test. So make sure that you do that. Some of the questions will tell you what the test I want you to use is. So if I say to you, use the integral test on this series, then you have to use the integral test. Even if you can look at it and say, oh, I can do that one as a ratio test or something, you're not allowed to. Because what I want to know is, do you know how to do the integral test? That's what I'm asking you. If I don't tell you what test to use, pick whatever one you like. Because sometimes there's more than one test. But I would give you a piece of advice. Avoid the integral test like it was the plague. Right? Would you agree the integral test is always going to be the worst one, takes forever in a day to do? So be aware of choosing a good test is, in my opinion, choosing the easiest one, isn't it? The one with the easiest amount of algebra, the easiest amount of work. Right, anything else you want to know about the test, content-wise?
I was kind of curious, do we have to do this pencil and paper, or if we have like an electronic like note-taking thing that we can upload it with, can we use that?
Oh, yes, you can use the electronic thing. I don't care pencil, but I think pens work better because they take better pictures if you're doing pen things. Where was I going with that thought? I don't really care too much that the right answer is 42, or that it converges, or that it's whatever it is. I'm much more concerned that you show me the working and the method that's used. So don't get too caught up. If you just said 2 times 3 is 5, you'll lose a point. I mean, you'll lose virtually nothing because that's just careless. If you miswrite the question and it used to be x squared, but suddenly it became x cubed. If the method's right, that's not going to kill you. That's just carelessness and the nerves of an exam. So in a lot of ways, the answer's the least important of the whole thing. I guess if you're an engineer, isn't the answer the most important thing? But in my way of doing it. So think about that. So you've got all that done, right? You're comfortable with your answers. You are allowed to have anything physically written down. So if you've got some cheat notes of trig identities that might be helpful to remember, or how to do U-subs, or whatever it is you've got, or remember that the limit of 1 plus a over n to the power of bn is e to the ab, whatever. Totally okay with that. Textbooks, totally okay with that. TI-84, great. I'll even put Desmos on it, although I can't see you using it much, except maybe in the integral test, and you want to see what it looks like. But everything else will have disappeared. So when you go to Canvas, the only thing that you'll see is test 1 information, what you see here, and Desmos. If you go, and the questions will basically be the same as your homework, right? I'll just go and look at some homework and say, oh, I like that one, I'll change a number or something, we're good. So there won't be any, I've never seen that before, right? You will have seen every question somewhere in your homework. But WebAssign will disappear on you. So you can't go back and say, oh, I remember doing one of those questions in 11.4. I'll go and look at my homework question, see what I did to get the answer. That will have disappeared. All that will be left in WebAssign is your ebook. right? So there's nothing really there to going to help you. So write down good notes, have them handy, totally okay with that. TI-84, use Desmos, okay with that. If you know how to use your calculator to add up series together, feel free to use that. If you want to do it by hand, feel free to use that. Any questions before I move on to the next stage?
I have a suggestion that
Mhm.
if you can, I would use blank paper rather than like graph paper because that'll show up better on pictures.
Okay, there's a good piece of advice. Thank you. Tessa?
Do you know how many questions are on the test off the top of your head?
Nope. I haven't made it. I'll make it this weekend. Some questions are pretty quick, you know. I'm trying to imagine what it would be. There's 9 tests, right? And so I'll probably miss a couple of those. So that'll be 7 series and a couple of sequences. So that'll be 9. But you got to remember, some of the sequences, aren't they just a limit as n-tends to infinity? L'Hopital, 2 lines done. So I mean, 3 minutes tops. So you should be fine. I don't think time should be the biggest issue. If you think time might be the biggest issue, there is a little bit of wiggle room. Come 10 minutes early and just start the test. And when you're finished the test, because you do have a kind of cut-off point at the end. In your case, it would be 10 o'clock, right? So at 10 o'clock, you've got a 15-minute window to take a picture of all your working, because that's how I'm going to see it. In Molly's case, it'll be different, but whatever, right? I'll get to see it. So let me talk about that then. If you are hopefully still looking at Math 163, do you notice there's a guy here called Microsoft Lens? This is one of the ways in which you can get your physical working that's here, right, onto Canvas so I can see it. So we'll click on this guy. If you've got an Android, right, an Android phone or a tablet, this is the link that will allow you to upload an app. It's totally free and it's by Microsoft. It's called Microsoft Lens. If you've got an Apple device, this is the link that will do that. Here's a little video that you can watch. I'm going to skip through it a little bit. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Is OneDrive and Office Lens specifically auto-sensing Microsoft Office 365 application into the iPad as a part of my Test Contoso company was handed a document and I need to scan that document. Now within my OneDrive app, I have the capability to do my OneDrive things, access my files, go through my folders, etc. But at the bottom, you'll notice the camera. And if you tap on that, it's going to go ahead and activate the camera that you have right on your device. And you'll notice as soon as I activate it, the document that I'm looking to scan that I have right here in front of me, it's going to put a blue box around the document. Now this is OneDrive and Office Lens specifically auto-sensing the edges of that document.
Pause here. That's a video that you can watch and it just basically takes you through how to use Office Lens. In fact, it has a lot more stuff than you need to worry about. It tells you about rotating it and, character reading and all sorts of stuff. You really only need to take a picture of my test because it's written by hand, right? Turn it into a PDF and get it to me. Now, you don't need to use this. There are other programs that do the same thing. Cam Scanner does it. Some of you might have software where you take a picture and it'll turn it into a PDF for you. I don't care how it gets done. Some of you have a printer and you stick your working and get your printer to scan it as a PDF. I just need it as a PDF. That's the bottom line. So I'm giving you this piece of software. That's not the only way to do it. But I've been told by people that use it that it's pretty intuitive. Has anybody right now used Microsoft Lens before? Have you ever used anything else that does the same job?
Adobe Scan.
Right. Use Adobe Scan. Yeah.
I'll give you a warning though about Adobe Scan. It has crashed on me in the middle of exams, so that's just something to worry about.
If you've never used anything, I think they're all pretty much the same. So you might, what I suggest if you don't feel comfortable because you've never done this, is just load it up and play about with it, right? Do a couple of pages, because once you've got your thing as a PDF, you're then going to click on this guy. And you see, you've only got to 10:15. So I guess you've got a little bit of wiggle room. So if you're not quite finished the test, you might be able to eat another 5 minutes of it and just do the finish bit, you know, on 10 minutes. If you click on it, I'll take you through what's going on. It looks like that, pretty basic. Upload your working here. You hit start assignment. If you've saved it to OneDrive, just hit OneDrive and you can get it right away. You know, on if you've got a OneDrive account, right, CamScanner will allow you to save your pictures, your working straight to your OneDrive. If not, put it on your desktop. And then what you do is you choose file. And there we go. Good idea to put your name on the file. That way I know it's Tessa's and not Victoria's. Although there are ways for me to find out. And then just hit home. And when you're happy, submit assignment. And if you see it over here, that's a good sign. Now you can practice that. Just draw pictures of dogs. Take a picture of it and try practicing uploading it to Canvas. Right? And I think you'll find it's not that scary. Right? You'll be able to do it pretty quickly. And you can check it, I believe. Yeah. Not just a dummy one, right? I don't know if I meant to close that window. I think I closed too many. Give me a minute. Has anybody got any questions while I get Canvas back? Are we feeling good?
Do we have a lecture on Monday?
No, Monday's a holiday, Tuesday's the test. Homework is due, used to be this Sunday, but one of my students suggested it, and I don't see a problem with it, so I'm going to do it, that I push it to Monday midnight, so you've got one more day. I would hope that everybody gets their homework done long before then, because you do need some time to get ready for the test, right? So if you're doing homework, you can't be doing two. But it'll be there if you want. There will be no ask for extensions. So whatever you don't get finished by the end of the 3 weeks is gone. It's just a hard fix, forget it. In a way, I don't see the advantage. What's the point in me giving you an extension on homework that you needed to do for the test that you're about to do? Because it's just not going to work. So you might as well start fresh on the next one. Remember that you're allowed to drop one of your 3 tests. Not that I suggest you make this one a horrible score, but it's not the end of the world. So try not to, because stress can cause you to do badly. You just don't think straight when you're stressed. So doesn't it make you feel a little bit better that you can always drop one if it really crashes and burns on you? And I now have that guy back. So I don't know what we were looking at before that happened. So here we go. Right.
How long do you expect the test to take? Do you expect it to take maybe half the time and have a lot of extra?
No, but it should take you. The thing about human beings is that they're unique. And unfortunately, uniqueness means some of you will be finished in 30 minutes. It could be for really good reasons or really bad reasons, but you will be finished in 30 minutes. Some of you would not be finished in 2 hours because that's just life. I typically, when I do a test, is I go through it by hand and I take about 20 minutes because I'm fast and I know what the questions are. So if I take about 20, I then say, if I times it by 3, I know my typical student will have no problems, right? Now, if I do the thing and it takes me 30 minutes, then I know I've made it too big and I go and I cut a couple of questions off it and then I get it to that time. Now, will I be perfect? No, sometimes my tests are longer than I think they are. I did them quickly, but I didn't realize how slow some of you are when you're thinking things. And I understand I should kind of be more aware of that, but sometimes I forget. So you shouldn't have a problem. A typical student who normally does tests and is finished on time with 10 minutes to spare. Now, remember I gave you wiggle room. If you think you're going to take more time based on previous experience, or maybe just you think this test is going to take more time, turn up 10 minutes early and the test will be there. So you can start 10 minutes early. If you're really, really pushed, you've got like an extra 5 minutes at the end, you know, so you could keep going to 5 minutes past 10, but that gives you 10 minutes to get that thing uploaded and into Canvas. Because at 10:15, that door closes and we can't upload your working. And now I've thought of that. When you're in the test and you've finished everything and you've uploaded it, the last thing you say to me is, I'm finished, and I go and check and I'll look at it. And if I can see it, I'll say, we are good to go. 99 times out of 100, it's great. But it has happened that it ain't worked. I've only got the first 4 questions. You've missed a page, you know, that kind of thing. And I can tell you about it and you can go and fix it. Question.
Do you want us to have our microphones on? I normally like listen to music when I take tests and
You
stuff.
listen to anything you like. I will be muting you all anyway, so nobody will hear your music. So you're cool with that.
Great. I also have dogs that bark, and I know that's kind of annoying for people.
Right. Yeah, I'm not interested in that. I do need to see you. So if I see your mouth moving, it better be because you're singing to the song. In which case, I might embarrass you and make your mic go back on. So just be aware that the bad bit is in me sometimes. No, I won't do that, but you'll be fine. But try and make sure that you don't mute me, because I may actually turn up and say, hey guys, I made an oopsie in question 3. You can't do an integral test on it. It doesn't work. And you're going to, you're going to be battering your head trying to make a question that's impossible work. And so you've got to be able to hear me when I say that. So don't mute me, but I will mute you and you'll be fine. Any other questions? That's a good question.
Do you have office hours today?
I do. So if you want to ask specific questions that you don't want to do in the class, do it then.
When are those hours?
Say again?
What time are your office hours?
My office hours are, you can get the information, it's 10 o'clock and there's a Zoom link and you just click on it. You might have to wait because I might have somebody in front of me and I do them and then I'll do you, but that'll be fine.
Okay.
Any more questions? Because I've got a joke to finish. You ready? Since we're talking about exams, this student never studied, never did anything, turned up late, sometimes didn't turn up at all, never done his homework, whatever. But every test and every exam, he used to turn up with all his Seahawks gear on, right? His Seahawks t-shirt, his Seahawks hat, everything. Seahawks pen, the lot. And eventually his friends were getting curious and said, why do you always come with Seahawks during exams? And he said, well, I know that I'm always going to pass, even when I shouldn't.
That was brutal, but funny.
Is it still too fresh?
It still hurts.
It still hurts. I hear you. I'm a Seahawks fan, but I like making fun of things. So what can I say? Okay, guys, I'm out of here. Remember last name. That's all I need now. It's clicking for my attendance. And you will get the results back probably. My goal is Wednesday, but realistically, because I've got 5 classes, you'll probably get a report by Thursday or Friday. And that'll basically tell you what you did in the test and so on. And I'll be putting solutions to the test so you can look at what you did compared to what my answer is and see what you win if you did anything wrong. Okay, bye-bye.
What's the next section we're going to do after this?
we are going to start with a little bit of parametric, but mostly we're going to look at three-dimensional stuff. So we're going to look at the geometry of 3 dimensions and the calculus of 3 dimensions and vectors in 3 dimensions. So engineers like this. And for some of you, I believe you've even seen 3-dimensional vectors in other classes. You're nodding like you have. Have you seen it? Yeah.
We did vectors and pre-calc.
We did, but they tended to be 2D. 3D, in fact, not that different, to be honest. We just do more detailed stuff with them. And I think 3 dimensions makes more sense. Would you agree the world is 3-dimensional? Unless you're a theoretical physicist, in which case it's 11 dimensions.
Yeah, we had to do them.
No, it's
in
not a joke.
calculus
String
physics.
theory, 11 dimensions. If you just go with Einstein, it's a 4-dimensional space-time world that we live in. But for engineers, it's 3 dimensions because they're not bright enough to do 4 or more dimensions. So we keep it simple for those guys. So I'm only going to do, for the most part, 3-dimensional. Have I insulted engineers twice today?
No, this is the first one.
No, there was another one, but Christian, you missed it. That must mean you're an engineer.
That is my goal, yes.
Are
Does
you
that
talking
mean
about
I've
the
now
joke
done
with
3
the
jokes to
engineer and the
insult
lawyer?
engineers?
There was a joke you said the other day about an engineer and the lawyer about 1 + 1. And then
Yeah.
the lawyer said it can be whatever you want it to be.
Yes, that was me actually picking on lawyers that time, but a little bit of engineers. Okay, it's bye-bye. I guess I'm hanging about in case there's questions, I suppose.
I have a question.
Okay, go, Rosie.
2 of them.
Uh-oh,
So-
you only allowed 1.
1. Okay, and then I'll go to office hours for the second.
No, you can ask me.
Okay. So for 11.6, question 2, I'm confused about how the power n and the power n + 1 cancel, but then leave.
Okay,
the
can you tell
6.
me the original question? Is that something you got handy?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it that way.
Sigma n to infinity n over 6 to the n.
That guy? Is that the one?
Yes.
What's the section under it? It should be under ratio test, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to do the limit as n tends to infinity of an + 1 over an. In this case, it's going to be the limit as n tends to infinity of n + 1 over 6 to the n + 1, and then turn that guy, essentially this guy, upside down, and you got that. Since everybody is positive and I'm not doing a power series, I can just ignore the absolute value. They don't matter anymore. Now, the cancelling seems to be your issue, so let's see. Are you happy with the 6 to the n cancels most of the 6 to the n + 1, but there's still a single 6 left? Are you happy about why that becomes this?
I'm not quite sure. Like I realized that n + 1 is greater than n.
Okay,
so it's not
let
going
me
to be
prove it to
canceling
you.
completely.
Right. What I'm saying is that this becomes that. So if you think of 6 to the n as being 6 times 6 times 6 to times 6 n times, and if you think of 6 to the n + 1 being 6 times 6 times 6 times 6, but n + 1 times, when you do the cancelling, won't all of these get cancelled out, but won't there be an extra one on the bottom left? That's why there's a 6 on the bottom.
That makes sense. Okay,
Right.
thanks.
There is another way to do it, I guess. Don't you just take top power, subtract bottom power, which in this case is kind of messy, but you see eventually you get a 6. It's another way of looking at it. Okay, we had 2 questions. We seem to have a very bad light today. I don't know what's going on. Okay, What was your other question?
Can we go over an example of a complete answer for the test of a pretend integral test question?
Okay, let's suppose we were being asked to do n over e to the n squared from n equals 1 to infinity, right? Suppose we were being asked to use the integral test on that question. So the first thing is that we need to prove that it's positive. And in this case, just writing it down is enough. And the reason why I say it's enough, would you agree it's kind of obvious that these are positives, so a fraction that's made up of positive things are positive. It's not even much. It's more of I'm stating an obvious truth than I'm proving anything. But you're still stating it. That way I know that you've at least looked into the issue, right? That I'm aware that I should check. Now, the second one's a little bit more. I need to prove that it's decreasing. Right, now to prove it's decreasing, let's call it f of x, which is that guy. I'm going to call it that guy. And the only reason I'm rewriting it as that guy is that if I'm going to differentiate something, would you agree the product rule tends to be easier than the quotient rule? But you could leave it that way if you want. Now, according to calculus, you make this one f and this one g, and the product rule is f dash g plus f of g dash. So in this case, it's 1 times, leave that guy alone, plus x times, and the derivative of this fella, e to the negative x squared, is in fact a chain rule. And it's e to the negative x squared times the derivative of negative x squared, which is that. Which means I now have as my derivative this guy minus 2x squared of this guy. I'm then going to do my style points thing, and I'm going to get that guy. So far, so good?
Yes.
Now, I'm going to rewrite this guy. Style points, right? Yeah, make me look like the answer. Okay. Now here goes. This is the way I do the proof for proving something's less than 0 or even greater than 0 if it's complicated. Isn't e to the power of anything squared positive number? E squared, E4, E24, positive. Would you agree that if x is 1, 2, 3, because basically it's a sequence, right? With 1, 2, 3. Would you agree that 1 take away 2x squared is always going to be a negative number? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's negative.
Did you notice I just put those down as signs? I didn't have some other bit at the end where I did some real theoretical proof of something. I just eyeballed it and said, it is reasonable to assume that the top is negative for values of x are, 1, 2, 3, and at the bottom. Now, what do you get if you take a negative thing on the top and a positive thing on the bottom? What's the net effect of the answer? Plus or negative? Plus or minus?
It's negative.
Right. Haven't I now shown that the derivative is negative and so it's decreasing? And then you move on to the test itself. And the integral test says that you have to find the integral from 1 to infinity of x over e to the x squared dx. And that pretty much turns always into this situation. Are you happy about that line?
Yeah.
Now, I deliberately gave you like the ugliest situation possible. It could happen, but normally aren't these integrals a lot easier to do, right? Power rule or something like that, but not in this case, right? What technique am I going to have to use to integrate an x on the top over an e to the x squared?
Would it be u sub?
Correct. And what would the u sub be?
x squared, because that's like the ugliest part of it.
You're getting the feel for it. I mean, it might not be mathematical to say it's the ugliest part, but we all kind of know what we mean when we say that, right? And I'm a great believer in calling things that help me remember what they are, right? So if I say it's more complex or I go fancy math words, it's not quite the same, is it, as saying it's the ugly guy, right? Because then we kind of know what we're talking about. And later on in your math career, you can say it's a more complex part or something if you want to be a little bit more educated. I like that, crossover, and then divide to isolate the dx, right? So I go over here and I do that fella, and the x stays put. That becomes e to the u, and then I have a 1 over 2x, and I have a du. And then just kind of going through the process that I would have done in Calc 2. I'll call that 1/2 1 over e to the u. And then if it wasn't already got enough problems, I have to realize that if I want to integrate this, that's really not helpful. This is. Why, or are you happy about why I did this line from here to here? Isn't 1 over e to the u, e to the negative u? You're happy about algebraically, that's true. But why did I do it?
Because then once you substitute x squared back in, it would be ugly if it were as a fraction.
That may be true. Well, it's probably the way I phrased it. Would you agree you can't really integrate 1 over e to the u? Don't you have to call it e to the negative u to integrate it? That's the only reason I'm doing it. You know how like 1 over x cubed, you have to call it x to the negative 3 so you can integrate it. It's kind of just for that reason. Can you trust me that the answer ends up being that guy? You trust me? Okay. Now, running short of room here. Negative 1/2 e to the negative x squared, evaluated at 0, or at 1, I should say, and at t. And that's the limit as t tends to infinity of 1 over 2 e to the x squared. That becomes negative 1 over 2 e to the t squared. Take away means add 1 over e to the 1. If you brute force that, doesn't this become 0?
Yes.
And so what we have is converger. Right, the limit is a number, 1 over 2e. And you can now say that that series converges. Now, you don't want 9 of those questions in a 1-hour test, and no, you're not going to get 9 of those questions in it. I wouldn't even think about probably doing that degree of difficulty in this test because it takes up too much time. I wouldn't mind doing it in a final exam because you get 3 hours in the final exam, and I can afford to put more complicated questions and longer questions in there. So yeah, you could get an integral test, probably will, but you're probably going to get an integral test like 1 over x cubed, you know, or something that you could do with half the work at least that I've had to write down here. That help?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, what's our next question?
That's it for me.
That's it, you. Anybody else?
I have a question on kind of similar to her 11.6 question. It's number 8.
What does it look like?
So it's sigma infinity n equals 1, and it's n factorial over n to the n.
Oh God, would you look at that's a cool question. You're going to use the ratio test on it? Okay.
Yep.
An plus 1 over an. N plus 1 factorial over n plus 1 to the power of n plus 1. Then turn the other guy upside down. And you got that guy, right? And since everybody's positive, I'm just not bothering about the absolute values. But I mean, if you want to, you can put them in. Now, there is a lot going on here. Let's just start with the easy one. Won't the n factorial and the n plus 1 factorial cancel out, but won't you also get something left behind? What's left behind when you cancel those factorials?
So I got n plus 1 to the n power on the bottom.
Eventually you are going to get that. But for my question right now, don't you just get an n plus 1 left over?
Yeah.
Okay, so what you said is totally correct. I just haven't got to the point where I'm going to ask that. So I'm doing it slower than that, right? So I've just taken care of the factorials right now. And what you noticed is that this n plus 1 cancels one of them. And now you're going to be left with this fella. And that's where you kind of went, oh, right? Agreed? So I am going to show you some sneaky algebra. Would you agree that that is allowed?
Yes.
Now, I'm now going to do something that is not so obvious, but it is allowed. What on earth did I just do there?
You took out, or you flipped them.
Yeah, I basically did a reciprocal. And if you do a reciprocal, it's a negative power. So turning something upside down and making a negative power kind of compensate, right? Now, the guy that I've just written down is n over n, which is 1, plus 1 over n to the negative n. Do you recognize this very special guy?
E.
To the what power?
1. Is it
Almost,
negative?
but
Negative 1?
Yeah, AB, 1 minus 1, AB. And isn't that guy 1 over E, and isn't 1 over E less than 1, so it converges. Absolutely converges.
That's where I was getting off the reciprocal point. And I didn't see that. Okay.
You were good to there, and then kind of lost it.
Yeah, because I remember when you were showing the 1 to E part a couple days ago, I'm like, I feel like that's where number 8's going.
You were right, and it was where it was going. You just couldn't figure out quite how to get it there, right? You are allowed to assume that. You're also allowed to assume that, although I don't think we've ever needed to use the bottom one, but it's true. Any other questions?
Oh,
I have
thank you.
one.
Rosie?
I forgot I have a third one.
You got a third one.
Number 19 from 11.5.
Okay, what does that look like?
Approximate the sum of this series correct to 4 decimal points. Sigma 1 to infinity, negative in parentheses, negative 1 to the n plus 1 power over n to the 5th power.
Okay. Alternating series. Alternating series converges. Is it negative 5th power or 5th power? Is that n to the 5? Because that diverges, in which case this question silly.
Yeah,
Is
it should
over?
be n to the negative 5 power because it's the denominator.
Okay, so I'm just going to rewrite it. That guy, right? Just kind of in my brain, that looks fair. Right. According to the alternating series test. If a series converges, which this does, we're only interested in it being correct to 4 decimal places. 4 decimal places means 0.0005. And you might say, wait a minute, that 5 is in the 5th decimal place. But when you round something off to the 4th decimal place, isn't it the 5th decimal place that decides if you round up or down? You know, if it's bigger than 5, it goes up. If it's less than 5, it goes down. So I'm going to use that convention. So if somebody says 2 decimal places, you are going to set it up as that guy. You see what I'm getting at? Right, now, according to the alternating series test, the error is that guy. And so we are trying to solve when is 1 over n plus 1 to the 5, because that's what the formula looks like, right? En looks like this. And we don't care about the -1 part, right? We just care about this bit. So a to the n plus 1 is him, and we're trying to solve when is he that, which is the same thing as trying to solve that guy. Okay, what could I, well, let me put the next line in and then I'll ask that question. This fella here is just something with 2 in it. So let's find out how many zeros go along with it. This guy here is 20,000. Okay, I want to find n. Tell me what to do. What do I do next?
I'll take the 5th root of 20,000 and subtract 1.
You got it. I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to take it to the power. Oops, I hit a thing I shouldn't have. Take the answer to the power, put a bracket round to get 1/5 root, and take away 1, and the answer I get is about 6.24, right? And what do we do in a situation where there's a decimal? Because most of the time you're going to get a decimal, aren't you? 6 or 7, where do we go?
Round up to 7 terms.
Right.